Good evening. How are you? It is very late in the day. It is dark. And there's almost a metaphorical reference here to how dark things are when it comes to forcing an accounting of people. So I didn't do this as a gimmick. I was out and it just kept getting dark. And then I realized if I was going to talk, I'd better start talking. And it's also started to rain. So I got all of it rolled into one. So what did we learn today from the January 6th committee? Two things. One is somebody accumulated all the evidence we had that we already knew that confirmed the fact that Trump knew months before he lost the election he was probably going to lose the election, and he had a scheme that involved violence and everything else that we know about to do it. One part of the hearing today. The second part of the hearing was to say, we're going to subpoena this guy and make him tell us his story. Now, the committee is not simple, so they know there's a good chance he's going to try to disappear in a cloud of dust and not show up at the committee. Okay, fine, and not produce the documents. But what does that sound like? That sounds like Bannon. And I think that they're prepared to go and issue a contempt citation. And where does that go? It goes to the so-called Department of Justice. And who is in charge of that department? Mr. Slow-Moving Garland. So the question is, will Garland act upon it and do what happened with Bannon, or, because, he's a president, just like the judge Loose Cannon down in Florida thought that Trump was a very special person. So will he do what he did with Meadows and shit-can the case, not do anything about it? This is very sad stuff, that we have a whole array of criminals who tried to run down our government, and nobody can put it together. And here's the other thing. The January 6th committee is on its last gasp. That is to say, we're within days of the midterm election, which means we're also within days of who will run the Congress the next time. Will, as some of the pundits and statisticians say, will we lose the House? Will we surprise some people and win seats in the Senate? And even then, if we do win the seats in the Senate and the Democrats prevail, will anybody go and defeat cloture? Because if they don't, the houses will be paralyzed, and any bad legislation that might pass that Biden doesn't approve of, he can veto. We can expect in the next Congress, if we don't get off our hee-haws and go to vote either now, in advance, or on the day of the election, we could have to live with, the threat of totalitarianism in our country, given the fact that the loyal opposition isn't very loyal to American values and is only concerned about winning elections. And they can't win elections fairly, so they have to use deceit, they have to use tricks, they have to cook, if you will, the collection of people who can and may vote. So that's our principal problem here. And I posted online Randy Rainbow about lock him up, because he speaks more directly to the problem in a joking kind of way. But if you do look at the thing I posted on Twitter, study the face of Garland when he's on camera in the makeup interview that Randy Rainbow has with him. Now, I have friends I've had a good part of my life, and they are upset that I keep bashing, if you will, Garland. I bash him because he's done nothing. I bash him because he waited so long doing nothing. Then they try to borrow the documents and research of the January 6th committee, and they seem paralyzed to actually use it and do something about it. So I have a friend who sent me an Atlantic Monthly article in which the person said, I'm absolutely certain that Garland is going to indict Trump. And then in the first couple of pages of the article, he basically says he never gave me a hint what he was going to do. So how does he know this? I think what happens is you say, a reasonable person would do this. And then you say, So Garland will do this. But he's not reasonable. He's cowardly. He's afraid of the magnificent fight that stands before anyone who indicts a president for the first time in American history. But if you do not treat him the way you would treat any other defendant, then you're in a world of trouble. But if you treat him the way you would treat every other defendant, then you're in a position to win because you have the goods, you have tapes, you have witnesses, you have bad acts, you have all the things necessary to win a case. But these people cower before the bully Trump. He has made such a life of bullying. They treat him like a major mobster in a local neighborhood, except he is a national phenomenon. And they all back down, every one of them, his own party and the Democrats as well. Judges and so forth back down. But others, they show profile. They show courage. And it's considered courage these days to do what is required by law and is absolutely necessary. So, that's my thought for the day. And if it wasn't pushing through my body, making me anxious and upset that we're not doing all that we can do. And I'm afraid we spend so much time waiting for action by the Congress, by the courts, by the prosecutors, and nothing happens. What does that tell you? The same thing that politicians do when there's a tough issue. They don't want to decide it, because once they decide it, then people can draw up the sides and know what's happening. But if they can fudge where they are and just say enough, they can say, oh, I thought that should have happened. But because I'm a coward and I don't live up to my oath of office, nothing did in fact happen. And the nation is now at risk to become an autocracy, a monarchy. And to have this evil person, Trump, in a position of power again, in a country that brags that it's about freedom, but is bullied to this point by this jerk. So, that's what I'm thinking about in the cold and the rain and in the dark. So I apologize. There's no way, I'm turning around, but there's no way that I can see enough light for you to see me. Here comes a car. That may help. There we go. Ah, there it is, a flash of light. And with that flash, I wish you good night, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.